the future, and life is worth the living just because He lives. It goes like this. And then one day I'll cross the river, I'll fight life's fight, no war with pain. And then as death gives way to victory, gives way to victory, I'll see the lights of glory, and I'll know He reigns. One voice we sing, because He lives, I can face tomorrow. Because He lives. Because He lives. All fear is gone. All fear is gone. We lift it up with one voice. Because I know He holds the future, and life is worth the living just because He lives. Amen. So the next song we're going to sing is the sing we sang this morning. It's about not being ashamed, because we know that God will have His wings around us. No matter how broken and what situation we're in life, He's there to accept us. So let's sing this together again. Unashamed. And I have not much to offer you, not near what you deserve, but still I come because Your cross has placed in me my worth. Oh Christ, my King of sympathy, whose wounds secure my peace. Grace extends. Your grace extends to call me friend. Your mercy sets me free. We sing, I know. And I know I'm weak. I know I'm unworthy to call upon Your name. Because of grace. But because of grace, because of Your mercy, I stand here unashamed. I can't explain this kind of love. I'm humbled and amazed. You came down, that you'd come down from heaven's heights at your feet, in my brokenness complete. Sing, here I am. Here I am at your feet, in my brokenness complete. Sing, here I am. Here I am at your feet, in my brokenness complete. Here I am at your feet, in my brokenness complete. I know I'm weak, and I know I'm weak. I know I'm unworthy to call upon your name, but because of grace, because of your mercy, I stand here unashamed. Because of your mercy, because of grace, because of your mercy, I stand here unashamed. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Sing it again. Amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. So we're just going to open up and just sing our last song for this worship set. Some of you guys might know it, but the song ultimately is just talking about the good news that we have in the future and what Jesus did in the cross for us, that he died for our sins and he resurrected again. He overcame death. So we sing, "Oh, praise his name." So let's sing that together. The lyrics will be up in the screen, and I encourage you guys to sing this song. This is a prayer of what we believe in. I cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. Let's sing that verse again. I cast my mind. I cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone, Messiah still and all alone. We sing, oh, praise his name. Son of heaven, the Son of heaven rose again. No trampled death, where is your sting? The angels roar for Christ the King. Oh, we sing, oh, praise, oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. He shall return in robes of white, the blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints, my gaze transfixed on Jesus' face. And we sing, oh, praise. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. One more time we sing. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. Oh Lord. Oh Lord our God. Dear Jesus, thank you again for what you did in the cross. Lord, as we open up, Lord, that we may be touched of how you want us to live our life, Lord, and that you may bless the speaker, that he may give us wisdom, Lord, but your wisdom that you want for us. Lord, so we thank you again, Lord, for everything that you've done, for your mercy and for your grace and for your love. Would you just be with us this evening as we continue to tackle more on what you want for us. And this we pray in Jesus' name.
We'd just like to invite you also to come into prayer as well. So I just ask that you find one or two people beside you and just pray. Pray that God will give us wisdom as we strive to become better adults, and pray for them, whatever burdens they have on their heart. So just take a minute right now and pray with the person next to you. Dear Heavenly Father, you hear the prayers that are going up to you now, and we thank you that you're such an active, living God. Father, we just pray that you continue to be with us and help us to grow in you and grow closer to each other and just grow in our relationship with you, God. We love you so much, and we thank you. Amen. We are going to be gifted now with Brother Glyne Thompson. He is going to be doing a special music for us. And so thank you so much for sharing your talents with us today. And then after that, we will be having our speaker, Randy, coming up and helping us learn about finances.
Good. For those of you who don't know, just in case, I am in training. So I started last year, and it's hard to believe, but this coming week, the 26th of January, would be 1 year since I started to play this instrument called the sax. So last night when I was here, one of the boys, said, "You going to bring your sax?" I said, "Well, no one asked me to play." So I said, just in case this morning, I decided to load it up with me and bring it along, So I've been goofing around in the pastor office there, just warming up my lips. I haven't been playing most of my week here because I've been busy at home doing some renovations. So today, I said, well, I better practice and do my thing. So I'm going to play a song for you, and it's one of my favorite songs. It's called Sweet By and By.
hopefully it's okay if I stand down here. I want to be a little closer to all of you, and those of you at the side there. If I could get you to, if you don't mind, just move over here where it's nice and close. It's just a little friendly seminar more than it is a sermon. And I'm just moving out of the lights because they're coming in right here. All right, so I think most of you know who I am. My name is Randy Kurtz. I'm the treasurer of the Pinehouse Drive Church here, and have been asked to come and talk to you a little bit about finances. So I'll share with you a little bit that I know from life's experiences, some of the mistakes I've made. Up on the board there, you can see my background. I've got 36 years experience adulting. So if you do the math, you can figure that out. I've been married for 25 years, have 2 teenage children, so I know what it feels like to be a bank machine. And I'm a treasurer of the church. I'm a CEO of our Adventist nursing home here in Saskatoon, so Sunnyside Adventist Care Center. And I know I've seen many of you there and appreciate when you come out to spend time with our residents and visit with them. I spent 10 years at the Royal Bank working there, had some good experiences, and I'll share with you some of my experiences working with bankers who don't know how to manage money. You wouldn't expect that, would you? I have a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Walla Walla University, and I have a PhD in DFD. Now, I know all of you know what a PhD is, right? Permanent head damage. Okay, and DFD, dumb financial decisions. So I've spent a lot of my life going like this from the dumb things that I've done, and I'll share some of them with you. And I would love to be a young person right now, your age, knowing what I know now, and I really, really could save myself a lot of grief and a lot of stress. All right, so that PhD is kind of a self-appointed. All right, so Jesus and money. It's Sabbath afternoon. Are you okay? We're talking about money. All right. My purpose here today is not to teach you how to get rich. My purpose here today is to teach you what the Bible says and what Mrs. White says about money and the way that we should live, and the benefits that you will glean from living that way. Okay, so in my notes here, you can see that Jesus said a lot about money. He says more about money than almost anything except the kingdom of God. A lot of the parables are about money. There's about 1,600 verses in the Bible that talk about money and possessions. So I think it's okay to talk about money on the Sabbath. This seminar has been presented by General Conference pastors for many, many years on the Sabbath. And I'm going to show you some numbers. We're going to talk about some numbers, but for the purpose of showing you how to live according to the way God wants you to live. Okay, I'm not going to go into really deep details. I'm not going to show you how to trade on the stock market and all that kind of stuff, but I'm going to show you how you can live a life the way the Bible says you should. So in the parable of the unjust steward, Jesus calls managing money the least of our responsibilities. All right, and so that's really important because managing money should be like the base of your life. It shouldn't be way up here from a priority point of view. It should be like you should have it together. It shouldn't take a lot of work. It shouldn't take a lot of stress to manage your money. I'm going to show you a lot of things here today, and you might, I don't want to overwhelm you. I hope I don't, but I want you to know that what I'm showing you today, I manage in my life in 1 hour a month. Okay, so it's a lot when you sit and talk about it, but once you have it as part of your routine, it's not a lot of time and energy. Okay, so 1 hour a month. I do my own taxes, so tax time 2 hours a month, that month. All right, so it's not a lot of time. Move on. So my presentation is got 3 parts to it. The first part, we're going to talk about the spiritual implications of money. And the second part is kind of the practical part. This is where we'll start talking about a few numbers and things you should do and shouldn't do. And then very, very quickly at the end, planning for the future as we get into retirement. And so I planned this for young people. I didn't put a lot in here for retirement because you'll have time to learn about that. My presentation here today is based on 5 books. It's based on the Bible, and you'll see a lot of verses from the Bible. It's based on Mrs. White's writings, and you'll see a lot of her quotes there. It's based on a book called It's Your Money, and Pastor Asha had mentioned that I brought some prizes with me as well. So I've given her some old business cards from Sunnyside. Being an accountant, I don't like to see anything go to waste. She's going to give you those cards and a pen, and we want you to write your name on the back of the cards, and we've got a box, and we'll throw your names into the box, and we'll just draw for the prizes, okay? So when you see Pastor Asha pass around these old cards, write your name at the back, and the boxes, she'll collect your cards, and we'll draw for the prizes. So It's Your Money, Isn't It? I've got 2 of those books to give away, and I also used John Matthews, who's, I think, at the stewardship director at the General Conference, used his book. And I also used a book by Dave Ramsey. He's a Christian author, but he writes for the world. And so he doesn't say too much about the Bible and that kind of stuff, but you can certainly see the themes coming through. So I've got 2 of his books to give away as well. What I would like you to do with these books, if you're the lucky recipient, is put your name in the book. I'd like you to read it, and I'd like you to pass it on to your other friends. They're fantastic books. When I read It's Your Money, which I think is probably the best money management book available for Adventists, I think I had highlighting in every single page, just highlighting. Now, interestingly, with It's Your Money, I read that book when it came out in 1993, so it's a little bit dated, but the principles are still applicable. I did a seminar like this in 1993, and then I put the book on the shelf, and it's collected dust until now for the last 25 years. Okay, when I got it out again to prepare for this seminar and I reread it, I realized there was a lot of things that I did that were in that book, and I could see, looking back 30 years, the blessings that I received by doing God's counsel. There was a lot of things in the book that I'd either forgotten about or hadn't done, and I could see how it cost me for not following God's counsel. So it was interesting to see that time lapse. So spiritual implications of money. My presentation is for those who have accepted Christ as their Savior, and you're seeking to make Him Lord of your lives. Okay, money is part of seeking God, and some of the things I present to you might be new. Some might seem a little radical, maybe even a bit crazy. But the way you manage your money has a great deal to do with your personal happiness in life. It has a great deal to do with the stability of your marriage, your career success, where you're going to spend eternity. And you can bet that Satan is out there trying to mess up every single one of these aspects of your life. And from divorce statistics, 80% of the people who get divorced say financial problems were one of the problems that led to their divorce. Okay, so I think it's, again, important that we know about the spiritual implications of money. Okay, there are 3 main I'm looking at the TV back there, and sometimes it's a little bit small, and I can't tell if I'm on the right screen. But so there's 3 main reasons people have money problems. Number 1 is ignorance. Now, ignorance doesn't mean that you're dumb. It just means you've never been taught. All right, whether it was in high school or in university or at home, nobody ever talked to you about these things. Living beyond our means, of course, greed and selfishness, not being willing to live in, drive, wear, whatever, within your budget, within your means. Okay, and this affects low-income and high-income earners. And I'll give you an example. Here's an example of a banker who doesn't know how to manage money. When I was working with Royal Bank, this young fellow that I was working with, he was very successful. He was doing very well. He was making about $150,000 a year in 1995, so that would be probably well over $200,000 today. And we were having lunch one day, and he was griping and complaining because the Royal Bank, he couldn't live on what they were paying him. And one of the things he was complaining about is that we received an $800 a month car allowance. And he's like, how am I supposed to survive on $800 a month car allowance? Now, you have to understand, I was driving an $800 car. Every month, I was paying for my car, and I'm like, wow, I'm just raking in the dough. So I'm thinking, this is fantastic. It's great on gas. It's cheap to drive. So I started talking to him, and, like, what's the problem? And we were living in Alberta. I was in Calgary at the time. Insurance is really expensive for young people. And, of course, the more expensive the car, the more expensive the insurance is. He had financed an $80,000 car, and he was paying $1,600 a month on his car payment, which was more than my mortgage. Okay? So there's an example of a banker who doesn't know what to do with money. All right? Financed his car, and it's mind-boggling. Another example, people that I used to work with used to complain about our meal allowance at the Royal Bank. They would give us $75 a day, no questions asked, just every day. We traveled quite a bit. And again, they would complain, how am I supposed to survive on $75 a day? When we had our first child, I used to take my wife with me. She was on maternity leave, and so we could be together more often. And the two of us could eat on $75 a day, no problem. Okay? So these are just examples of the spiritual implications of money. They affect people who have low incomes. They affect people who have large incomes. So early in our history, the American dream was defined as owning a house, having a happy family, having a good education, having a stable job, and having a chance to get ahead. Some pretty good, wholesome things. Okay, today, thanks to advertising, which I'm calling the evangelistic arm of materialism. Okay, I like that quote. So people have become a lot more selfish, a lot more worldly, and a lot more materialistic. And our society is built on debt. I'm going to talk a lot today about debt, and debt is not a good way to build a society. Okay, so the best things that we can do is put God first in our lives. His wisdom will help us to build a life that is going to be strong, it's going to last, and of course, part of that is not being out there to impress others. So let me just show you some numbers. Now, those numbers were lined up when I did my PowerPoint, but for some reason they went like this. But those are numbers in the billions, okay? This is advertising. So on the previous slide, I talked to you about advertising being the evangelistic arm of materialism. So Procter & Gamble spends $4.6 billion advertising every year. Nike spends $3 billion advertising every year. You know how many shoes they have to sell to pay that? Just the advertising? Forget all the expenses of salaries and all that kind of stuff. Okay, when you on the typical product that you buy, 10% of that product is for advertising. So if you buy a $100 pair of shoes, $10 goes to just to pay the advertising, to get you to buy those shoes. Okay, so the reason I show you all these numbers is I want you to know what you're up against. So when I'm here trying to teach you to follow God's practices, you're up against billions and billions and billions of dollars that are being sent, bombarding you with saying, you have to have this, and to be cool, you need this, and you got to do this, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, social media, $4 billion a year is spent advertising on social media. And this is the top 10 companies here. Worldwide, it's probably in the neighborhood of $250 billion spent advertising. Advertising is to get you to spend your money, whether you have it or not. If you don't have it, what do? They loan it to you, right? Credit is easy to get, all right? And it's also very profitable for the company. So I give you this so I want you to understand what you're up against. It's very, very strong what you're up. Okay? So what is a Christian supposed to do? Through God's Word, He's given us guidelines to direct our lives. I've already mentioned 1,600 Bible verses. Two-thirds of Christ's parables talk about money and possessions. All of the three parables in Matthew 25, dealing with the condition of the church at the end time, okay, are talking about money and how it separates the saved from the lost. Okay? Ellen White has a lot of excellent counsel that I'll be referring to as well. She's written several books: Stewardship, the messages to young people, the Adventist Home, messages to ministers. There's also some good Christian authors out there as well that have sources of information. Okay, 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, whatever you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. So does that apply to your money? How you spend your money? Do we do it for the glory of God? Absolutely. It says whatever you do. Okay, 2 Timothy talks about there'll be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, and on and on and on. All right, so do you think some of the financial problems we're experiencing today, the materialism we're experiencing, does Timothy nailed it? For sure he has. People never seem to have enough, right? That, as I've talked to you before, doesn't matter how much you make. If you are not living according to God's counsel, it'll never be enough, okay? He counsels us in Luke 12:25. He said, watch out, be on guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist of the abundance of possessions, okay? So that's in Luke 12:15. Now, again, as Christians, most of us, I feel like we have absolutely no problem believing that God's going to take us to heaven. That's a given. That's a done deal. All right? But for some reason, we, when it comes to our life and our needs, all of a sudden we take control. And we're like, no, we got to do this. Okay? We need to learn that to trust Him fully in everything, in everything in our lives. So some Bible characters who've made decisions about money and possessions. So we've got Lot and his wife there. Tell me, in Lot's case, I'm thinking of two things that happened with Lot. What was the first one with him and Abraham, the decision that was made? Do you remember? Lot chose the valley because it looked nice, right? It was green, had the best grass, the best pastures, the cities were there, lots of entertainment, right? And Abraham took up into the mountains where it wasn't quite so easy to live, and he lived in a tent, right? Okay, and now think about later on in Lot's life. What happened? The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. What was the event there? Be brave. Somebody be brave. How did Lot and his wife leave Sodom and Gomorrah when they were told it was going to be destroyed? Did they, yell and scream and grab their suitcases and run? They lingered. In fact, the angels had to basically drag them out. And in the end, what happened to Lot's wife? She still had to turn back and give one more look. Okay, so why do you think that was? Why did Lot's wife have to turn back and look? All her stuff was there, right? What's that? Her heart was there too, because all her stuff was there. All right, and so whenever I'm studying the Bible and I'm reading the Bible and I come across these stories, I don't look at Lot's wife and think, oh man, she was really a piece of work. I look at her and I say, I'm probably not that much different. And so it's a warning message to me, and it's a warning message to you that we can be just as caught up as she was. All right, so some people who made good decisions, Abraham, Moses. You remember Zacchaeus, what Christ said? Of course, he was bad, and he was overtaxing people and that. But at the end, when he invited Christ to his house, Christ said, today salvation has come to this home, because he recognized what he was doing, gave his life over to God. So it was just, again, some really good examples that we can use in our study of the Bible. Some principles to help us understand the Bible's perspective on money. Number one, God is the creator and owner of everything, right? He's created the earth. He's created you. He has given you talents. He's given you blessings. He's given you absolutely everything. God owns 100% of everything. Our purpose in this life is to honor God. It's not to honor ourselves or any other thing. Returning tithe is the minimum testimony of our Christian commitment. And because God owns everything 100%, we don't pay tithe. Right? I don't pay tithe. You pay tithe? We return tithe. All right, because we're giving back to God what he owns. And debt is bad. I'm going to talk a lot about this, okay? One of the things that I want you to remember, debt is one of the worst things that we can get involved in. Prosperity is having what you need, all right? Satan's plan for your money, as you know, Satan goes about as a roaring lion to destroy all of us. I really like the second point here. This is a quote from Mrs. White, and she saw this in vision. Satan and his angels were having a board meeting or a business meeting, just like we do in church, right? When we have board meetings, we have business meetings, we make plans, right? And that's exactly what he was doing. But of course, his plans are, how can he get to us? How can he drag us away from God? And this is a quote from Mrs. White. The discussion around the table of Satan's angels was, go make the people drunk with the cares of this life. Present the world before them in its most attractive way. Make them care more for money than for building Christ's kingdom and the spreading of his truth. We know that every covetous person will fall away under our power and be separated from God. That's Satan's strategy. So what's God's plan for your money? I'm not going to go through all of this. This is the verse in Malachi that talks about, robbing God, bringing all the tithe to the storehouse. And one of the interesting points that caught my attention here was, though God says, test me in this. I have it underlined there. God doesn't say test me very often in the Bible. And we're not supposed to test God. But he tells me here, you can test me and see if I won't bless you. And so in the old days, in the Old Testament days, where was the storehouse? So in the Old Testament days, what was the storehouse? The temple or the sanctuary, right? Okay, and who was supported with the tithes in the old days? The Levites, and the Levites were the priests, right? Okay, so let's take that now to today. Who's the priest today? The pastors are, right? Where's the storehouse today? The conference office. So just so you're aware, as the treasurer of the Pinehouse Church, okay, 100% of the tithe that we receive through all of our churches in all of our conferences around our churches goes to the conference, okay? And then the conference takes care of looking after all of our pastors, okay? The church, Pinehouse Church or any church, all right, if every member paid a faithful tithe and a faithful tithe only, okay, every single church would close, because we couldn't pay the electrical bill, and we couldn't pay the repair bill, and we couldn't pay for Sabbath school quarterlies and that kind of stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about tithes and offerings, but the tithe goes up to the conference, and then the church survives on offerings that come in through church budget. Okay, so I wanted you to understand that what God had in the Old Testament still works today in the New Testament. So to help us overcome materialism, God instituted the tithing system so that we wouldn't become selfish and we wouldn't become greedy. And offerings are our response of love and gratitude for God's blessings and His goodness, and our support of specific needs and ministries within the church. The bottom point there, Mrs. White says, money has great value because it can do great good, but money is of no more value than sand unless it's put to use. And these are the three uses of money, in my opinion, the only three uses for money. So number one, make sure that you look after your family's needs. And I forgot to put the 2 and 3 in there, but number 2, help others. And number 3, advance the cause of God. Those are the only 3 uses for money here. So I want to tell you a little story. Is Pastor Ashley here? She gave me permission to share this, so it's okay. I don't need her to be here, but I just want you to know she gave me permission to share her story and how Pastor Asha got to Saskatoon. So as the treasurer of this church, I'm also a board member. In late 2016, we were talking about we need to do something for the young people. We really need a youth pastor, but we don't have one. We can't afford one. So the idea was hatched to bring a student from Burman University here for the summer, a second or third year student. And so we figured out the cost. It was going to be about $16,000 to do that. And we'd start talking to the conference, and the conference said, yeah, we'll pay half. And so we talked to some church members, and some of the church members here who've been blessed by God and who are following the principles that I've been talking about said, yeah, we'll come up with the other $8,000. So we had $16,000, and we were able to go to Burma and do some interviewing, and fortunate to find Pastor Asha. She's a 4th year. She'd graduated, though. We were thinking of a 2nd or 3rd year student that would go back at the end of August. So with Pastor Asha coming here, she was just getting wound up at the end of August, and so we were like, we need to keep her longer. She's a 4th year graduate, so she can stay. So we went back to the board, back to the conference. Some of our church members came forward, said, yes, we will donate some more money. The conference gave another $8,000. We had another $16,000 donated in total, and we were able to say, now we can keep Pastor Asha to the end of December. So we were really excited about that. And during September through December, we learned as a church, something that I wasn't aware of, was that the North American Church in Canada, or North American Church and the SDA Church in Canada have a program for hiring female pastors. And what they will do is they will pay 2/3 of the salary for a 3-year period if the church will pay the other 1/3. Okay, and we're making a 3-year commitment. $75,000 is what our commitment is. So we went back to the church board and said, this is exciting news. We can have Pastor Asha stay for 3 more years. All we need to do is come up with $75,000. Okay? And fortunately enough, we've got people who've been living according to God's way. The money came in, and we've got Pastor Asha. I hope all of you know that. I hope I'm not saying anything I shouldn't, right, Pastor Mike? Okay? So Pastor Asha is going to be here for 3 years on this program, and it's all because of people who are living God's way, and God's blessed them, and they're using their money for one of these 3 purposes. So I wanted to tell you that story because to me, it's just You know, I started off as a board member thinking, oh, it's going to be great to have somebody for 3 months over the summer. And then it was like, oh, it's going to be great to have somebody for 6 months. And now it's like we're going to have somebody for 3.5 years. And it's just because of God's blessings and people in the congregation who are able to do that. One of my goals for you as young people is you're the next generation. You know that. You've been told that lots of times, right? Okay? So hopefully some of you will be in that position. You'll be on the church board. You'll see about things that are needed in the church. Because you've managed your finances well, you'll be in a position to be able to help out with those kind of projects in the future. So that's God's plan for your money. Now, I want to talk about some present practical applications, okay? How do all these principles that we talk about, do they fit today? Is the Bible still relevant in what it says today? So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is the tyranny of debt. If there's anything you remember from what I talk about today, just remember, debt is bad, debt is not your friend, and debt is a 4-letter word. Okay? Proverbs, I love Proverbs. The writings of Solomon, the wisest man on the earth. He said, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. So if you are in debt, you are a borrower. You are a slave. All right? Live within your income. Your creditors will eat you alive. Pay cash for things that go down in value. Only borrow for things that go up. Okay, that's a pretty radical principle. So let me ask you, there's this sale on big screen TVs at Best Buy, half price. Should I buy it on credit? No. All right? There's a 0% interest on a car I can buy, payments over the next 8 years. Nice car. Nice leather seats. Should I buy it on credit? Okay. It's cold outside. You know, Canada, we have cold winters. I need a break. I need to go to Mexico for the winter, or not the winter, for 2 or 3 weeks for vacation. Should I buy it on credit? No. Think about that principle. What can I buy that it would be okay to borrow? A house. Okay, that's a good example. Anything else? Land. The answer is not much that you should buy on credit. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you some things today because you might be thinking, well, that's impossible. Okay, it is possible. All right, a couple other things you could buy on credit. Very carefully, short term, if you were doing some investing, but very, very carefully. So for example, sometimes I borrowed money in February to buy registered retirement savings plans, but I know I'm getting a tax refund in March, so it's only a month and I can pay that loan off. Okay. Now, the other one that's a little bit tricky, what about some of you young people? What about student loans? What are you getting for that student loan? An education and a piece of paper at the end, right? Okay. So, I'm going to tell you as young people that student loans are okay, but I would say as little as possible. All right? So work hard during the summer, work during the school year, see if your parents can help you, your grandparents, and then when you get your degree and you start your first job, pay it off ASAP. Okay? So student loans, I'll say yes, it's okay to borrow money because you're getting an education, something that's going to allow you to make a better income, have a more secure job, but just be really, really careful, all right? It's great when the money comes in, but you have to pay it back. Okay, so those are about the only three things I would say you borrow money for, and that is to buy a home, very short-term secure investments, student loans. Everything else, I'm going to show you how to pay cash. Okay? All right, still talking about debt. Mrs. White says in the Adventist Home, debt is the curse of your life. Avoid it like the smallpox. Debt is Satan's snare that he sets for souls. Deny yourself 1,000 things before you go into debt. Okay, now, smallpox, we don't think much about it today, right? But in Mrs. White's days, smallpox meant death. All right, it's kind of like HIV/AIDS today. All right, so just so you understand what she was saying there, it's serious. She's telling you, deny yourself 1,000 things. Okay, so I'm going to go into a few points now, some things that just to be careful of with debt. Okay, do not cosign. All right, Proverbs says, I'm not going to read the whole thing there, but basically it says, don't sleep, don't slumber. Go and get yourself out. If you've co-signed for a loan, just don't do it, okay? Because you are now liable for somebody else's car or somebody else's house or whatever. And if the banks are in the business of lending money, all right? They know what they're doing. They're very good at it. And if they're not giving your friend or your family member money, what does that mean? They're not a good risk, right? They either have a bad employment record, or they have a bad credit record, or maybe they they got too much credit already. Okay, so this is counsel coming right from Proverbs. Do not co-sign. All right, you can get stuck paying the bill and you can't get out of it. All right, so this is good counsel. The only thing I'll tell you is if you ever find somebody in life who has co-signed and are stuck with somebody else's bill, okay, get legal counsel. And what you can do is not pay it either as a co-signer. Okay, you will destroy your credit record, but then the bank will come and take the car or the house from from your friend. All right, but don't do it. Don't get yourself into that mess. Okay, another thing, don't practice what's called personal surety. And what that means is you owe money on something, but it's not worth anything. So credit card debt is personal surety. You've got nothing to show for that credit card debt, right? Credit lines is personal surety. You've got nothing. Even when you buy a new car, most of the times for the first 2-3 years, you owe more on that car than it's worth. As soon as you drive that car off the lot, it drops in value probably $5,000. If you get hit driving home and your car is totaled off, okay, your nice $25,000 car, the insurance company is going to give you $20,000 for it, you're stuck with $5,000 bill. So one of the things, and I'll tell you a bit about buying cars in a bit, and I'll say to you, don't buy new cars. But if you do, buy for the first 2 years what's called replacement insurance, so you don't get stuck with a bill and nothing to show for it. So personal surety. Don't get involved in get-rich-quick schemes. How many of you have ever had a friend come to you and say, yeah, I really got something great. You got to hear this. Come over for some popcorn. Okay? I guarantee you you're going to get that if you haven't yet. All right? Be really, really super careful. It's exciting, and it's, we're going to get rich, and it's just the greatest and the latest thing and all this kind of stuff. And you're usually asking, pressuring you a little bit, make a quick decision. All right? And what I tell people is just let it sit for 3 to 6 months, and I pretty much guarantee you it's dead and gone. Okay, so don't waste your money on get-rich-quick scheme. God does not want us doing that. It adds stress, it adds pressure to our lives, and He wants us spending our time doing His work, okay, praying for His people, not running around chasing riches. Now, don't get into long-term debt. Deuteronomy 15, 1-2 says at the end of every 7 years, you must cancel debts. So this is coming from the Old Testament. This is coming from the Israelites. And so when I'm studying my Bible and I come across these verses, I stop and I think, okay, so why did God say this? Why did He say cancel? You can't have debt for more than 7 years? And if you haven't noticed, 7 is God's favorite number. I don't know why yet. I don't know, Pastor Michael, have we ever figured out why God loves 7 so much? It's the perfect number, but I don't know why. Okay, but think about that in our society today. I looked at this and I say, why did God tell the Israelites not to have long-term debt? Okay, we don't do that today, but I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you how I think it's going to blow your socks off if we were to stick to this principle, what a difference it would make in our lives. Okay, and it is possible. All right, so I'll give you some examples coming up. But today, our mortgages are 25 and 30 years, and oftentimes we upgrade and it's 50 years. Okay, so, but if God had something in mind in the past that was good for us, I'm thinking maybe it still applies, right? The health message still applies to us today, right? The Sabbath still applies to us today. So why wouldn't this apply? In my mind, this is because people want it now. They're not gonna do stuff that's gonna make them wait. So they want it now. So our society has changed. We've moved away from biblical principles. So I'll show you how that can apply. A little thing on credit life insurance. We need to have some life insurance especially if you're married and you have children to protect your family, to make sure your kids can be educated. But there's something called term life. It's the cheapest life out there, life insurance. If you work for a company, oftentimes they'll offer you very good life. But don't buy credit life insurance because every payment you make, that life insurance is worth less and less and less and less. So if you buy a $250,000 house and you die right away, that life insurance is worth $250,000. But 20 years later, that life insurance is worth $50,000, but you're still paying the same premium. Okay, so credit life insurance is not good. Buy term life insurance. So those are some things not to do. All right, so whoops, I think I went 2 screens here. Yeah, now for the good news. How to get out of debt within 18 to 24 months. All right, and this is except for your mortgage. And these points down below are from Mrs. White in 1877. Okay, so it was written about 40 years ago or something like that. She says, make a commitment to be faithful in tithing, thus accessing God's wisdom and blessing. Make a covenant with God that from this point on, as he blesses, you will pay off all your debts ASAP. Declare a moratorium on credit spending. Okay, no more new debt. Develop a budget. Get yourself organized. Make a plan. All right, so I'm going to show you a little table here. It's on the internet. You can Google it. But this is how, if you've racked up debt, all right, and in one of the books that we'll be giving away later on, Dave Ramsey's book, he gives examples of this one couple. They got married. They had 16 credit cards, racked to the top. Okay, they got out of debt in 24 months. So I don't know how well you can see. Can you see that? Okay, I'm going to use my pointer here. They've listed their debts here. So they have a Visa bill. Sears is gone, but they're still paying. Parents, dentist, automobile. These are all their debts. That's how much they owe. That's the interest rate. Now this chart's a little bit old because some of those rates are maybe a bit high, maybe not. The date it's due. So what they're doing is they're paying $25 a month on their Visa bill, okay? And it's $75, so in 3 months it's paid off. On the fourth month, what you do is you take that 25 and you add it to the second bill. Now they're paying 80. You see how that works? You get the $80 bill paid off, and you take the 80 and you add it on to the parents, and now you went from paying 100 to 180. You get this one paid off, and then you just add it onto your doctor bill, and you get it paid off, and you add it onto your auto bill. If you stick to that, you don't add any debt, you should be debt-free in 1.5 to 2 years. Okay, so it's very simple. And anything extra that comes along, if you get a tax refund, if you can work a little overtime at your job, or whatever else you can do to get out of debt, okay? Because as Christians, what I'm telling you is get out of debt and stay out of debt, okay? So this. If you're in trouble right now, this is a way that'll help you. It's not easy. You and if you're married, you and your partner have to get together, and you have to decide that you want to do this, and you're going to make the sacrifices to do it together, okay? All right. So just a little bit more from Mrs. White on debt. She said, as we approach the end time, we should cut the cords that bind us to this earth so that when Jesus comes, the fires at the end will not burn up much of our stuff because we won't have much. Okay? So this plan works that I showed you there, and it just takes a little bit of sacrifice to get there. Now, this picture here, it has a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is obvious. All right? I really hope this never, ever is one of you. All right? So lottery tickets, gambling, casinos, okay? I mean, stay away, all right? What I say about those things is the government has figured out a way to tax people and have them enjoy it, okay? That's what casinos and lotteries are all about. So the bad thing is buying lottery tickets before the credit bills arrive, okay? So they're hoping to win the lottery in order to pay their bills. Not a good thing. What's the good thing here? They're sitting down and talking, husband and wife. Absolutely. Okay, so generally speaking, in a couple, all right, a married couple, there's usually the husband or the wife, who is kind of the money person, right? All right. So as a church treasurer, I can tell the checks that come in, every month is signed by either the wife or the husband, same person. Rarely that it flip-flops. Right? It's always one person that's their responsibility. And that's okay. What I want you to understand is, that's fine, but you need to get together and talk about things, okay? So it's obvious in my family who does that, right? All right, I'm the nerdy one. I'm the one that's like, honey, it's Saturday night. How about we get together and do some budgeting? Okay, for her, it's like, I'd rather go to the dentist and have a root canal. But you have to do it. You have to get together. You have to talk. You have to plan. You have to agree on what you're going to do. So that's the good part about here is at least this couple is together and talking about their finances. So Luke 14 says, 28 to 30 says, suppose that one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? So this is, in my translation, they're talking about budgeting. So I'm going to go in and talk a little bit about budgeting now. Okay? So Luke is saying, if you're going to do something, make sure you can pay for it. Otherwise, it says if you lay the foundation, you can't finish it, people are going to laugh at you. They're thinking you're a very poor planner. Okay? 80% of families are stressed out living paycheck to paycheck. 40% pay more than $2,000 a year in interest on their debt. So I'll talk just a little bit about budgeting. Okay? Budgeting for most people is about as popular as dieting or going to the dentist, but it is essential. We need to do it. Okay? Without budgeting, I've already mentioned, it doesn't matter how much you make, you'll never have enough. Okay? When we make a budget, okay, we sit down and we plan, and we're going to tell our money where we want it to go. Okay? If you don't do that, it's going to be like water in your hands, and it's just going to go. You don't know where it went, all right, but it's gone. And Hebrews 13:5 says, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God said, I will never leave you or forsake you. So again, still talking about budgeting. Each of you can learn a little bit about money management, okay? I don't spend, as I mentioned, I don't spend a lot of time on money management. In my life, I've read probably 3 or 4 or 5 books. I read the odd article here and there, and I don't spend a lot of time on it. But you need to learn a little bit. What I'm teaching you today is just very high level. You need to slowly get this into your life so it becomes habit and routine. Pray for God's wisdom and blessings. Ask God to transform your heart from selfishness and love. All right. I used to love to trade stocks. Okay, it was fun. It was exciting. When I worked for the Royal Bank, I was in the head office downtown. I could mingle with all the big shots and say, hey, you know, what do you think's going to happen? Where's the market going? And I spent a lot of time doing that. And I'm very happy that through just things that have happened in my life, God just took that away. I have absolutely no desire to go back to even look at the stock market. I don't know if it's up today. I don't know if it's down today. I just don't care, all right, because it doesn't matter. But you do need to learn the basics, okay? There's tons of information on the website. I just give you one website there, moneycoach.ca. There is just tons and tons and tons, but you have to be careful what you read there. The average Canadian family income for a family of 4 is about $80,000 a year. And depending on your family income, that translates into at least $3 million that your family is going to go through in their lifetime. Could be easily 4 million, could be easily 5 million, depending on your income. Okay? So you do go through a lot of money. We kind of don't count it because it's $5 here and it's $25 there. But in your lifetime, you're going to go through $3 to $5 million most likely. Okay? Here's just some very high-level percentages. Housing, your property taxes, insurance is 20 to 25%. One of the things you have to be careful of is if you go to the bank, how much will they give you? They'll give you as much as they think you can afford. 30%, 35%, 40% if they think you can afford it, all right? Because the bank doesn't look at life the way that we look at life as Christians. The bank looks at life and says, oh, you're out to get what you can get. You're out for number one, and that's you. And so they're going to give you the biggest house that they think you can afford, all right? As Christians, as we look at our budget, we need to go and say, no, I can find a really nice house for 20 to 25% of my budget. And then we work into other things like the utilities, the groceries, the car expenses. And notice I'm saying for car expenses, hopefully you got no payments, so you're paying insurance and fuel and repairs. There's going to be some medical bills, dentistry, that kind of stuff, clothing. Debt, hopefully 0% in your budget. Okay, entertainment, savings. How many people do you think out there save 15% of their budget? Just about none. Okay, and then how many people out there do you think can afford to pay 10 to 15% of their income in tithes and offerings? Okay, just about none. But if you follow God's plan, these numbers work. If you add up the highest number of 25%, the 10%, the 15%, all of them, it works out to a little over 100% here, but that means you're maxing out on every single line item here. It's relatively easy to work in the savings and giving to God when you've created your budget from the beginning and you don't have any payments except a mortgage, and that would be included in the 20 to 25%. Okay? And these are things as young people that as you're starting your lives, all right, if you start with them now, you work it in and you stick to it. What happens is if you don't stick to this, you buy a house that's too big. You buy a car that's too big. You buy toys that are too big. And pretty soon you can't pay tithe. And pretty soon you can't tithe because you've just maxed out your life. Okay? So I'm going to show you a spreadsheet here. This is probably as detailed amount of numbers as I'm going to get into today, but I thought it was important If you don't have a budget, okay, you need to have a budget, okay? And so, whoops, I went past it. Okay, hopefully you can kind of see that from here. But I want you to understand it's easy and it's simple. It's just a basic spreadsheet that I found on the internet and downloaded it. It's not rocket science. You don't have to have a PhD in finance to do this stuff. So let me just show you really easy. This budget here, they keep track of their expenses 2015, 16, 17, 18. So it's just a spreadsheet. So they just keep adding a column every year. Okay? Then they go down and they make a budget annually and monthly, income for spouse 1, spouse 2, other income, tax refunds. Then they go down. These categories, there's nothing that says this is the way to do it, but you just need categories that make sense to you. So they've got, you know, their cars, their cable and cell phones, their vacations, their school tuition, their groceries, their home, etc. Yeah, and they have, you can barely see the number down there, but their budget is really skinny. They're planning for $104,000 of income, planning for $104,000 of expenses, $153 left. But they have pretty significant savings in here. And so they're doing good. And then what they've done is every month you go in here and just take your bank statement, January, February, March, all the way up to December, and then you've got your total and your variance. So you just take your receipts or your bank statement and just put the numbers in. Okay, once a month takes you an hour. Then when you look at this, wow, they're doing great with auto. Their variance here, they're under budget by $2,800, so that's awesome. Their cell phones are pretty predictable, so they're right on budget. They're a little bit over budget on vacationing, a little bit over budget on school tuition. All of a sudden, you get to groceries, clothes, and personal, minus $6,000. Okay, time to stop and have a little chat with whoever's spending that money. Okay, because somebody's going way over what you planned. All right, that's the neat thing about a budget. Okay, and the neat thing about you and your spouse having gotten together and talked about it and planned for it is this is not fight time. Okay, it's like, you know, you get together and you say, hey, we said we could get by on what do they have here? They said we could get by on $1,458. So how come we're just like way over? Okay, so this is where you can stop. And have a little conversation and figure out what's going wrong and straighten your life out before the debt starts piling up. Okay? So what I wanted to show you with this is it's not hard. It doesn't take a lot of time. You need to do it. You need to see where you may make a plan. You need to know what your plan is, and this will tell you if you're following the plan or if the money is going through your hands like water. It'll tell you. Okay? Before you get too far into trouble. The neat thing also about budgeting is you can download your transactions from your bank into this kind of software. That's available to you. And that makes it just that much easier. So I haven't stopped. I've been doing a lot of talking, but I should have told you at the very beginning. Feel free to ask questions as we go. Is there any questions on budgeting? Because we're going to move on to a different subject. Yes? Okay.
Actually give you a notification, hey, it's too much on this, or this is what you have left in this.
Okay, so you can build it right into some of the banks can build it right into an app that will monitor your bank account and flag you when stuff happens, so it makes it even easier. Yeah. Okay, I'll have to look into that. Okay, good stuff. Anything else? All right, so we're going to keep going with budgeting things. Just this next one is on automobiles. Oops, I went too far. Come on. It's skipping a couple of pages for some reason. Okay, did I slip do I have some slides out of order from what I'm thinking? Maybe I do. I'm just going to go back. Thanks, Ernest. No, I'm going forward. Sorry, I'm pushing the button the wrong way. I've got my thumb on the wrong side. Okay, that's where we were. Something's not quite in the same order. Okay, I'll talk about this slide. It's not in my slides here. But basically, with regards to children, okay, the 3 things that I feel you owe your children. You owe them a Christian home to grow up in. You need to teach them to work. All right, and you saw in the budget that I had there was even a little line where the children could contribute, and it helps so that you don't have to buy everything for them. And you need to give them, I believe, a good education. So you get them started in life, and you turn them loose, turn them free. And then you sell your house and buy a 1-bedroom condo so they can't move back. Okay. You don't owe them a big inheritance. And this is what Mrs. White says. She says, let every child be taught to keep an accurate account of their income and expenses. Let them learn the right way to use money. Let them select and purchase their own books and clothes and necessities. Keeping account of their expenses, they will learn, as they could learn in no other way, the value of money. That's coming from Mrs. White Education. So Mrs. White's saying, and she doesn't say it here, but I would say when your child is able to count, so maybe around 6, 7 years old, start teaching them these things. They will thank you. And they will move out from home and not move back if you teach them this stuff. Okay? If you don't teach them, they're coming back. All right, automobiles. Now, Ernest, it says 4:42 up there on the TV. Is that the right time? So what time did we start? 3? So I need to be packing it up pretty quick. 3:45? 4:45, 4:45. Okay. All right. Well, I am getting down. I'll skip quickly, though, on some of these things. So automobiles, probably the thing that we waste more money in our life than anything is automobiles, okay? Because we are constantly buying them, and they're constantly depreciating down to 0, all right? So I'm going to encourage you to buy your cars with cash. How do you avoid a loan, all right? You need to let go of the need to drive the latest and the greatest vehicle. There's lots of used vehicles out there that are reliable and fun to drive. If you don't have enough cash, be patient and save. The last 4 vehicles I've purchased them for $10,000 or less per vehicle. And there wasn't one of them that I wouldn't jump in and just feel comfortable driving to Vancouver, because it was reliable, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. Okay? Did you have a question?
I did.
Okay.
What if someone says, oh, well, I can get a loan for 0%?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a good little fish line, 0% loans. Right? How can you beat that, right? All right. You go to that car dealer that's giving you the 0% loan and say it's a $25,000 car. If you offer them $22,000 cash, they'll take your cash. So are you paying interest? Yeah, you're paying interest. It's just in the price of the car. All right. Cars depreciate too fast. I suggest buying a car anywhere from 2 to 10 years old, okay, depending on your budget. And in the first 2 years, most cars will depreciate to half. All right. The worst I ever felt buying a car, I bought this car, beautiful car, BMW, 50,000 kilometers on it, like new, always been kept inside. The guy who bought it had the bill of sale. He paid $105,000 for it. Okay, I paid him $15,000. I felt bad taking it off his hands. Okay, he lost, how does that work out to? $85,000 on his car. Okay, it's just don't buy new cars. Okay, go with cars 2 to 10 years old, reliable cars. Do your homework. Okay. Now the other thing is, you might say, and I'm going to tell you I've told you I've spent no more than $10,000 on the last 4 vehicles I bought. I'm going to tell you to set a cap of $15,000 on your vehicle. Okay, that's kind of low. All right, you can buy a really good car for $15,000. You don't need to spend more than that. And the reason I'm telling you that is so that if you're going to buy a new car and the dealer says to you, oh, it's only $300 biweekly. See, when I was a young person, it was always by the month. But they make it biweekly now, so it sounds lower, right? And when I bought my first car, it was a 3-year loan. Now it's 7 or 8. All right, so they're trying to suck you into permanent lifetime payments. That's what cars have become, permanent lifetime payments. And I'm telling you, no payments. So if you were going to buy a new car for $300 biweekly, and you think you can afford that, and you're just about ready to sign that contract, what I'm going to tell you to do is take that $300 and go and have it transferred automatically into a savings account. Okay? You don't buy that car. You hang on to the old junker that you have. Put that $300 into a savings account. Okay? In 1 year, you've got about $7,000 in your savings account. What happens after that year? Maybe you lose your job. If you had signed the deal on that car, now you got payments, and you got stress, and you got a bank chasing you. If you hadn't signed the deal, you got $7,000 in the bank to get you through until you can get another job and get back on track. You can stop making your savings payments, okay? When you've got $10,000 saved up, when you've got $12,000, $15,000, whatever your budget, go and pay cash, okay? It's that simple. You just have to discipline yourself and say, I'm not going to go and buy a new car or a better car until I can afford to pay cash. You might have to work your way up. So maybe you save for a year, you've got the $7,000, and your junker has died, okay? So go and buy a car for $7,000. But then keep making the $300 savings payments. And maybe that new car that you bought for $7,000 will last for 5 years. In 5 years, okay, you now have $35,000 in the bank. Okay? So all you have to do is that very first time, get out of debt, stop borrowing for cars, and then just putting that money that you thought you were going to make in payments into savings. So you're running downhill when you do it that way. Okay? When you borrow the money, you're running uphill all your life. Okay? So it takes a little bit of discipline. Now, this one, it's a lot of, let me see, one more slide. It's a lot of text, but I hope it makes sense to you. Okay, buying a home. I got an example here, 2 families, the Biggers and the Smalls. Okay, this relates back to the Deuteronomy text that says don't go in debt for more than 7 years. It can do it. You can easily see how you could do it with a car, but a house, not so easy. Okay, let's take a look at this. I'm just going to read it to you. The Biggers go out and buy a house for $350,000, and that's kind of an average price in Saskatoon today. All right, they get a 30-year mortgage, 4.5% interest rate, put $10,000 down. Their monthly payment is $1,714 a month. In the end, they're going to pay $267,000 interest for a total home cost of $617,000. The Smalls, they buy a home for $175,000, and I went on real estate and I found several homes I could buy in Saskatoon for $175,000. They put $10,000 down. They took a 10-year mortgage, 4.5% rate. Their payments are $1,707. Do you see the similarity in payments? They're almost identical. Okay. In the end, they'll pay $61,000 interest for a total house cost of $226,000. So after 10 years, and their house is paid for, the Smalls decide, no, they want to upgrade. So they're going to go into a $350,000 house. They sell their house, take another 10-year loan, and they'll pay another $61,000 in interest for a total house cost of $453,000. After 20 years, the Smalls have their house paid for just in time for their children to start university. So now they can use their mortgage, their former mortgage money, for tuition so their children can graduate debt-free. Parents, that's a goal for your kids. Graduate from university debt-free. Okay? Or for the next 10 years, the Smalls could just save that money. Maybe they didn't have any children, and they're going to just put that $1,707 in the bank at 2% interest, and at the end of 10 years, they're going to have $226,000 early retirement. Okay? After 30 years, the 2 families get together to celebrate that the Biggers have finally paid off their mortgage. The Smalls have paid $161,000 less interest expense than the Biggers. The Smalls have 2 children graduated university debt-free. The Biggers' children each have a $50,000 student loan. The Smalls have a savings account with $85,000 in it. The Biggers are broke. Okay, do you see the difference? Do you see what God said in Deuteronomy about not having long-term debt? Makes a difference. It still applies today. So this was just really, really interesting for me when I was studying about this 7-year thing, and I was trying to understand it. Now, I used a 10-year loan here, but if you really wanted to, you and your wife got together, you probably could do it in 7. Okay, this is one of the principles, where I did a lot of head damage because I didn't follow this, and it's made a huge difference. My wife and I, when we bought our first house, we paid $95,000 for a brand new house in a nice neighborhood with a park across the street. Okay? We could have easily paid it off in 7 years, but for whatever reason, didn't know about this at the time, didn't do it. And, the being debt-free for almost all of our lives would have been just an amazing, amazing difference in your lives. And being able to be in a position to help your kids through school, be in a position to not worry about one of you loses a job, be in a position to be able to retire at whatever, 60, 65, depending on your health. These principles from the Bible about not having long-term debt really do work, and I believe they really do apply to us today. So these charts here, if you see them, the top one is the Biggers, the bottom one is the Smalls. The green part is where you're paying interest. The red part is, the green is where you're paying principal. The red is where you're paying interest. So if pictures work better for you, okay, you can see why the Biggers are broke. Okay, they've just paying interest all their lives. I'm going to skip this one. It was just talking about making extra payments. Home applications, just little things. Borrow as little as you can, pay it back as quick as you can. No more than 15 years. As my counsel to you, is no more than 15 years on your mortgage. If you need to go more than 15 years, you're buying too big of a house. Okay. Take a fixed rate interest rate, so you don't have to worry about interest rates going up and down. Make sure you can make extra payments. Have a good sized down payment. Use a mortgage broker to get the best rate. We talked about life insurance. Consider a basement suite. You're renting out your basement suite to have a little bit of income to help you. It's a big decision, so make sure you know what you're doing. Get help from your parents, your relatives, your friends, somebody who's been through it. Read on the internet, okay? Don't go out on your own. You will make probably some mistakes, so find out who can help you. Your parents hopefully would be thrilled if you were to come and ask them. Even after you've married and you're moved away from home and you're buying your first house, I hope your parents would be thrilled to have you come back and say, hey, can you help us through this? Because obviously your parents hopefully have bought a house or two. All right, Mrs. White has a quote there. It says, we are not to be disturbed if our neighbors build and furnish their homes in a manner that we are not authorized to follow, okay? You don't need a mansion on earth, because you know one's waiting for you in heaven. And in heaven, the streets are paved with gold. So what do you think the houses are made out of? Okay, it's hard to imagine. All right. Do you need a financial advisor? Okay, I'm going to say yes. I never had one when I was working for the Royal Bank. I thought, well, what do I need a financial broker for? I'm trading stocks. I know it all. I'm great. A friend of mine talked me into going to this little presentation, and she told me afterwards, she says, well, I needed 5 people to come with me because then I got my name entered in a draw for a trip to Mexico. So I went reluctantly to this financial planner, and I haven't looked back since. This financial planner was the one who took all the trading stocks and stuff away from me, and I just said, here, just take it. And I was done. All right, this is why I spend 1 hour a year with my financial advisor. Once a year I meet with them and just talk about, what are we doing? Has anything changed in your life? Are your goals different? That kind of stuff. And as I mentioned to you before, you as a family are going to go through $3 to $5 million in your lifetime. Okay? I think you could use a coach. And that's what a financial planner is. They can help you with your mortgage. They can help you, with your loans. They can help you with student planning for students, for university, tax planning, investments, insurance, all that kind of stuff. Just be careful. Sometimes financial advisors want to sell you a lot of stuff. They want to sell you disability insurance and all kinds of things that maybe you don't need. But I look at them as a coach, and I'm going to recommend that when you graduate from university, all right, and you get your first job, you need a financial advisor. Okay, someone to help you. You sit down and plan with them. You tell them, listen, I'm a Christian. I want to pay 12% of my income to the church. I want to save for Christian education. You just tell them what your goals are, and they'll help you get there. Right? So you don't want to tell them that you want the biggest house on the street and I want to drive the fanciest car on the street, because they'll help you get there if that's what you want. But that's not what we want. But I'm going to recommend that you do that. Almost done. We're in the third section here, just planning for the future. I made this purposely really, really short. Retirement. Okay, just a few quick points. A retirement of a life of ease and pleasure is the world's alternative to heaven. It's not working, as you know. People are rusting out before they wear out. Okay, in Genesis 3:19, God told Adam and Eve, "You're going to work all the days of your life." All right, Daniel, the Apostle Paul, John, they all worked. In those days, they were in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they're writing books and still working for God. All right, in those days, people only lived to be 30, 40 years old. Okay, so the general picture in the Bible is one that works and remains productive as long as he or she is able. Using the experience and time of retired people are a valuable part of finishing God's work. So you might retire from your main income, but you should never retire from God's work. Okay. And inheritance and estate planning. Ellen White has some really, I found something it was something I wasn't aware of, but the second point says, let it be kept in mind that the present selfish system of disposing of property is not God's plan, but it's man's device. Christians should be reformers and break up the present system, giving an entirely new aspect to the formation of wills. Let the idea be present that it's the Lord's property that you're handling. The will of God in this matter is the law. Store up your treasure in heaven. So basically what Mrs. White is saying here is, generally speaking, most people of the world, when they do their estate and they do their will, and you should have a will, okay? My wife and I wrote a will shortly after we got married, and we have not had to change it. We've never gone back and changed it because we wrote it. If we have kids, this is what we want. If we don't have kids, this is what we want, and etc. And it's okay to update your will, but again, what I'm trying to get across to you is it's not a lot of work. Just go and have a will so that everybody knows what your wishes are, okay? But what Mrs. White is saying here is, if you've looked after your children, remember I said give them a Christian home, teach them to work and an education, and they've moved on, okay? When you pass away, what's left? It returns to God. It's God's in the first place, all right? And not just distributed to your kids without even thinking about it. And so you got to be careful there. If you have children that are maybe disabled or something like that, you need to look after them, okay? But at the end of your life, it's the world's way to just pass it on down to your children. God's way, say, hey, that's mine. What you have left is you've been blessed. It should come back to me. So, final slide. In conclusion, we must put materialism in its place in the light of eternity. So our identity shouldn't be wrapped up in, or should be wrapped up in Jesus, not in our possessions. We must put God first in our life and serve Him with our finances and with all our hearts and with all our minds. Okay, the outcome will be a life of contentment. Jesus will say to us, well done, good and faithful servant. Our highest aim should be to get to heaven with everything in our lives. So, I've said a lot in a little over an hour, I think. I hope I gave you something to think about. And as I mentioned, this is just a very high level, quick overview. You need to take this and apply it to your lives where you can, how you can, when you can. And the biggest difference is when you're young. Okay, I've made mistakes along the way, and I've said to you before, when you see it 30 years down the road, you realize, wow, if I had only done this when I was 25, the huge impact it would have on me now. Okay, the things that I did when I was 25, it's like, wow, they were awesome. So one of the things that I did was when I graduated, I rented an apartment, 3-bedroom apartment with 2 other guys, and the rent was cheap, divided it 3 ways. Some of the guys were a pain in the neck. One of them ended up in prison. All right, not because of me, but I got my student loans paid off in a year. Okay, that was one of the things I wanted to do. I got them paid off quickly. Then I went out and bought a sports car. Okay, that was a stupid thing that I did. All right, but if you follow God's will, follow God's practices, all right, He will look after you. He promises to do that. So, any final questions? Yes.
Just a statement for those who need a Christian financial planner to help you. I'm available.
Oh, okay. All right, good. I didn't know you were a financial planner. So you're glad I recommended them. Good thing I didn't say no. Don't have one. Okay, Glenn.
Well, one of the things I think when you talk about cars, and I think this is something for the young folks, even the old folks, to look at seriously, is that as you said, you don't really want to be spending more than $10,000 on a car. But one of the things I keep in my mind is that if I'm going to buy a car, say for $10,000, I usually go with a system of based on $1,000 per year devaluation of the car. So if I want to be technically, debt-free with that car, I got to keep it for 10 years. You see? So don't, as Randy is saying, it's very true, and all financials will probably tell you the same thing. Don't spend a lot of money on something that depreciates. So if you can get a nice-looking car for $10,000 or less, which you can, you should go that route. And a good plan is also to look at SGI salvage site, because they do have a lot of cars there that will pop up from time to time. You can get good cars at a very reasonable price, and just plate it again, and it's ready to go.
So there's a lot to learn, and as you learn, we need to learn from each other. As a church, we need to support each other. So Mrs. Clark has just said, she's a financial planner. I did not know that. I should have known that, but she can help you. And Mrs. Clark, I don't think your customers pay for your services, right?
They don't have to bank with me either.
Yeah. So the financial planners, they make their money through, you're going to buy investments or you're going to save for your future, whatever. They make their money that way, and that's okay. But you don't have to come in and give them money by the hour or anything like that. Their work is free. Okay, free. So Glenn said, in case you couldn't hear him, you buy a car, $1,000 a year depreciation is his goal. So if he buys a $10,000 car, he's going to keep it for 10 years. So that car cost them $1,000 a year to drive, okay? That's another easy way to look at it. It very fits with what I told you about not paying more than $10,000 to $15,000 for a car. Okay, so anything else? Okay, I am around as well, so I'm not, I would much rather you go to Mrs. Clark than me, because I don't practice this for a living, but I enjoy it. When I worked for the Royal Bank, I had the opportunity to be a financial planner, and the only reason I didn't do it was I just couldn't bear to deal with stock market crashes and other people's money. So I'd be their advisor, and then the money would go down in value, and I was like, I can't deal with that, so I didn't go that direction. Yes? I didn't hear the last word. Oh, a wedding. Oh. Pastor Collins is going to save me. Okay.
Our wedding probably cost the equivalent of 1 week's salary, which in 1975 was about $80. But I think our actual wedding cost maybe $50.
Okay.
Maybe 50 to 60. It was cheap, but we're still married after almost. But we're married the same year.
Okay.
You don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars. You don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars for a wedding. It's a beautiful service, but that's not really what counts. What counts is the marriage, not the wedding. So, you know, I'm not saying you have to have a wedding for a week's worth of salary. What's a week's salary here? $1,000, $1,500?
$1,500, yeah.
$1,500. I'm not saying you have to do that. But you need to be mindful of the fact weddings cost a lot of money. I was amazed in, maybe it's that way in North America now. We've been out of touch for 11, 12 years. Lebanese families would spend $25,000, $50,000 for a wedding. In many of the Middle Eastern countries, same thing. Unbelievable. And the salaries there were half what they are here.
Wow.
How in the world can they do it? I don't know.
Okay.
Either someone has a lot of money or they go into a lot of debt, and usually it's the debt.
Debt. So I was thinking of is the word debt. Okay, talk to your parents, talk to your grooms, spouses to be parents, to see what their condition is, what they can help you with. Okay, talk amongst yourselves as a couple. Have you been able to save up some money? And the bottom line is, don't go into debt for your wedding. So if you can pay cash for a $10,000 wedding, oh, it's okay. But if you have to borrow that, I'd say you've gone too far. So save. If you're planning to get married, be saving now. Talk to your parents now so you know what the budget is and you can plan. But that's kind of one of the key principles, is don't go into debt for anything. Yes?
I wanted to mention something that I struggled with financial advising, and also that maybe some people may, if you're an immigrant, is that often you have the burden of supporting family members. So let's say someone will say, well, what's your income? Like if student loans. And they'll say, oh, okay, and how many people are in your household? It's one. But really, there's actually 10 people that my income supports. And so then often the debt that I find that I get into has nothing to do with my reckless spending, but it's emergencies that come up and all these other things. And it becomes an emotional issue where you can't almost live with yourself if you can't help out. And there isn't a way to figure out how to do that. And it's not, I guess what I'm saying is, I know a lot of families and a lot of people that have those struggles where they have the burdens of supporting themselves here, but also they have burdens of supporting families back home, and they always feel like, however much they struggle here, it's never going to be as how our families are back home, and then that puts you into this jeopardy where, eventually it's going to come back and haunt you, not being able to support yourself well. And I only had one advisor that I found that finally understood that he could say to me, okay, I get it, that you need to sometimes send money back home, so this is how you plan that, and I feel like that was the two things I had to say. I'm a Christian, and I have family that I support, and how do you do that?
So you make a good point, and I work with a lot of folks who are immigrant workers as well, and I know they're sending money back. your financial advisor is there to help you meet your goals. And if you have a goal to support your family back home, then they should respect that. They have to help you figure out how you're going to work that into your budget. All right? And even with tithing, a lot of financial advisors are, come on, are you that much money in the church? Like, come on. What do they do with it all? Right? And so you have to tell them, though, a good financial planner is, these are my goals. I want to support my family. So it means sacrifices here, though, because I know as you said, you have it way better here than your family has it back home, but your family back home probably thinks you're rich and it's not a big deal, right? And it is a struggle, but it is part of your budget and it's part of your plan. You also touched upon one other thing that I forgot to mention, that was emergencies and having an emergency fund, okay? All of you should have at least $1,000 emergency fund, all right? If you put $50 a month aside, in about 18 months, you're there, all right? That money needs to be in a bank account that's not accessible through your debit card, because it's too tempting if it is. You need to go into the bank and get that money. An emergency is your fridge is broken down and can't be fixed and you're going to lose all your food, so I got to buy a new fridge, okay? Or your car is broken down, I got to fix it because I need my job. An emergency is not a sale at the mall. So I have a friend. I got to tell you about a friend, okay? She had her emergency fund was a credit card with a $1,000 balance on it, okay? That was her limit. And she took an empty margarine container, and she put the credit card in the empty margarine container. She filled it with water, and she stuck it in the freezer. Okay? Whatever you got to do to not touch that emergency fund. But you need to have an emergency fund, okay? Because otherwise, boom, you're in trouble as soon as a little thing happens. Yes, sir? Where's the microphone?
Just to respond to the immigrant question, or point, yeah. A lot of times, we have to make decisions that are unpopular in regards to our families. Mm-hmm. Sorry. A lot of times, what seem to be emergencies for people back home is not really an emergency. And they will survive if you decide that, putting emotion aside, I'm not able to respond to this issue. So it is going to be tough, especially if you're somebody who is very emotional, mm-hmm. But you'll have to decide that, listen, this is the amount that I'm setting aside for family back home. Unless it is illness or real emergency, which you will have to decide what is that real emergency. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, don't call, because I have no money.
Yeah, and so the emotions of it are really hard. That's why the example of freezing the credit card in the freezer, because ourselves are just like that, right? We will have things come up where we feel we just got to do it. We got to spend my emergency fund. And if you just have that chance to let it thaw for a while before you can get at it, maybe the emotions will settle down and you'll be able to, not end up having to deal with that emergency. So, but it is your, part of your plan. And I like your idea of, I have this many dollars set aside per month to help my family. Okay, anything else? Yes?
I just want to reiterate a point that Pastor Lucian made some weeks ago in one of our Sabbath school classes as it relates to tithing. And, I've always been a big believer of tithing, how important it is and the fact that God asked us to do it, that it's important to do. But he made this point about 2 or 3 weeks ago that I keep running over in my mind, where he said that when you tithe, you give your tithe or return your tithe and offering, it's showing your love to God and giving back to God what belongs to him first and foremost. So if it is that you are spending, after you have done that, you are not able to live off the difference, it means you are doing something wrong. And I just wanted to reiterate that in this setting, so we can understand that we should give God his first, and if we are not able to survive off what remains, it means we need to go back and see what it is that we're doing that's wrong. Something is wrong, like you just mentioned it too. Maybe your house is too big, maybe the car is taking too much, maybe you're buying too much clothes. Something is wrong. You need to check that. But God's money is his first.
So another quick banking story. when I signed up to my financial planner, another friend of mine signed up as well, and we were talking about afterwards. And the financial planner helps you do a budget, and the financial planner said to this fellow, do you think maybe your wife is doing drugs? And I thought, that's kind of a strange question for a financial planner to ask somebody you've just met, a new customer. So I said, what was she talking about? And then he explained, the financial planner said to him, how can anybody spend that much money every month? So she thought she was on drugs, and that's how she was spending that much money every month. Any other questions?
I was going to respond to her question about this emotional, because it seems to be, for people that come from elsewhere, it's something that's very common. And for me personally, what I do, I don't necessarily feel bad when somebody calls back home and they need money, because what I do is I do have a budget, a specific budget towards it, and I put a little small amount of money. So if it happens to be that time that there's no money in that particular account, then I can easily say, you know what, I don't have money. But at the same time, I could say, you know what, depending on how much money they need, for me, I will keep putting that little bit amount that I have already decided to put it, and maybe they might have to wait in 3 or 4 months, depending on how much they were looking for.
Okay. So like I said, I am available, and I would be happy to help any of you with little questions along the ways. There's no miracles, but with Mrs. Clark being a financial planner, much better prepared than I am. These are the 2 books that we're going to have a draw for, plus some of the things from Berman. This one here is the one I used most for my presentation today. It's Your Money, Isn't It? Practical Money Management for Adventists. Okay, and as I mentioned to you, hardly a page isn't got stuff highlighted after I read this, and I read it again after 25 years, and I was pretty much highlighting the same stuff all over again. Okay, so it's available at the ABC. It's written in '93, so some of the things are dated, like he's talking about President Bill Clinton. All right, so some of you may not even remember him, but the principles are very applicable, and I think I paid $12 for it. Okay, it'll be the best $12 that you ever invested in your life, I guarantee it. And as I mentioned, we're drawing for 2 of these books. And put your name in it, pass it on to your friends, the best gift you'll ever give them. And then we're doing a draw for 2 of these books, Dave Ramsey, Total Money Makeover, and as I mentioned, he's a Christian author. But he's writing for the world, so he doesn't talk much about tithing and that kind of stuff, but he slips it in every once in a while. But he's got some good ideas. Both of them, I talked a lot today about debt. Both of them talk a lot about debt, okay? And this book brings in all the Ellen White's writings. She's got some amazing books that you can read if you want to go deeper. And, of course, a lot of the Bible texts and stuff are here. But I hope that I planted a few seeds, gave you a few ideas, got you interested in the subject a little bit, because, as I said at the very beginning, our finances should be the least of our worries, all right? I know that tough things happen, and people lose jobs, people need jobs. As we get established and as we work, we're either going to dig ourselves into big trouble by getting into debt, or we are going to keep our finances as the least of our problems and be able to move on and focus on doing God's work rather than stressing about our finances. So thank you very much for your attention. It was just fun to be with you here and share. Thank you.
Thank you so
it was a
much.
pleasure.
Another round of applause for Randy.
Okay, it was my pleasure.
Thank you guys so much. Do you want me to, is it on? You're right, it's not. Mercy. It has been a long 2 days. It's been 2 days. It feels like 3. Thank you guys so much for being with us for the last 2-3 sessions for adulting, for our first ever Adulting 101. I think it went well. What do you think? Did you guys learn anything new at all? I got a lot of new information, from relationships to spirituality, and now with all the financial. You should have seen me. I was taking so many notes. We are just so thankful today for the opportunity that we had with all of you guys. I know you guys are excited to get to the prizes. How about we pray together? We invite these beautiful people to come back up. We'll sing one last song, and then we'll go into our draw. How about that? We'll sing one last song, and then we will pray together and do the draws. Yes.
Oh, I just thought of something when Pastor Astra said she was taking notes. If you want a copy of my PowerPoint, just let her know and I'll email it to you, or to her and then to you.
I will be distributing it to everyone. Free financial advice for everybody. All right, we are going to be singing our final song. All right, everybody on your feet. We're going to stand together and sing, I Love You, Lord.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you so much that you have given us guidance in so many areas of our lives. And so, Father, thank you for this learning time that we have had together. And Father, help it to sink into our minds so that we can follow your will for our lives. We love you so much. Be with us now as we depart from this place, and just take us safely home. Amen.
The moment we've been waiting for. Thank you. All right, Sandra, would you please shake the box? Our first gift will be the wonderful book. It's Your Money. All right. So, for this wonderful book, Sandra, who will be the winner?
Ropa.
Ropa Chaya. Will Ropa Chaya come and collect the book for It Is Your Money? She's not here. Next person. It Is Your Money. Leslie Torniado, it is your money. Awesome. All right, Sandra. For Dave Ramsey, the total money makeover. Who is going to have a total money makeover?
Pastor Michael Collins.
All right. We are going to go into some Berman swag. Let's mix it up. Let's mix it up. Some Berman swag. Sandra, which of our wonderful Berman swag are we giving away tonight? I know. We're mixing it up. All right. We're going to get a hat and a bag. Ooh. With that Berman swag. That Berman swag. All right, Sandra. Who?
Patient.
Woo! She will be so fresh in her Berman swag. So fresh, so clean. You're welcome. All right, Sandra, what other cool and amazing Berman swag do we have? All right, who is going to be keeping their ears warm?
Roxanne.
Roxanne Clark. Roxanne Clark will be keeping her ears warm and her t-shirt popping. All right. Okay, more Berman swag. Who is going to be drinking from the fountain of, well, Berman? All right. It is
Pindalay.
Yes. Congratulations to Pindalay. I hope it serves hot, wonderful tea. All right. We are going to give away these 2 books. Who wants to get your money? It is your money. All right. Who's going to win this one?
Rumbi.
She's not here. All right. Next person. Quickly. She's here? Rumbi? Hi, Rumbi. Congratulations. You've won a book on financial planning. At 13 years old, we start them early in our church. Yes, we do. Congratulations, Rumbi. All right. The winner for the Dave Ramsey book is
Walter.
Congratulations to Walter. All right, guys. We are back to the Berman swag. We plan to keep you oh so fresh and clean. Okay, we have a very cool hat. And the winner is?
Oren.
Oren. Come up and congratulations to Oren. No pressure. Just every time he wears it. Bye, Noah. All right. Who hasn't won anything yet? Okay. We still got people. We still got people. Let me shake it up some more. There we go. There we go. Oh, thank you. He's donating a bag. Thank you, Noah. Thank you so much.
The winner for this one is Andrew.
Andrew Clark. This was not rigged, I promise. It was not rigged. Andrew Clark, you have won a prize similar to your wives. Berman University. All right, the duffel bag, the gym bag, New Year's resolution time. Who will get this amazingness?
Wadzi.
Duchess, congratulations. All right, we have one more prize. One more prize. One more prize. Oh.
Lloyd? Chambers?
Lloyd Chambers. Lloyd Chambers. Is there a Lloyd Chambers in the building? Going once, going twice. On to the next person. Okay, this might be your day.
Kevin.
Kevin. Is Kevin in the building? Kevin. Oh, Kevin. Going once, going twice. Kevin. You're not. You don't have. No. All right. All right. Here we go. One more time. This person is
Audrey.
Is Audrey in the building? Going once, going twice. Pass. All right. You still got a chance.
Mercy.
All right. This is your lucky day. Let's see.
Zach, whoa!
The Lord. It was not rigged. It was not rigged. Okay. Tim Hortons gift card. Guys, I have 2 Tim Hortons gift cards. Okay. This is actually the last time. The last time, guys. The last time.
Kasha
Gets a Tim Hortons gift card to keep warm this winter. Congratulations. All right. Is today your lucky day? No. Josh has won a Tim Hortons gift card. Congratulations to all our winners. Thank you guys so much for being here. I just have a couple more cards I want to give of thanks to Sandra. I wrote to Sandra and for the wonderful people from Logos Collective and Friends. Thank you guys so much. You guys want to give them a round of applause? The music, the worship this weekend was awesome. And for Pastor Lucien for doing the facilitating last night. It was amazing. Thank you guys for coming out to our first ever adulting program. It was amazing because you were here. We hope that you have an amazing week, that your week started off with a high and you have lots to think about. Have a great evening. Have a safe journey home, those who joined us all the way from Regina, and see you guys next week, Sabbath. Goodbye. Oh, there is food outside on the table. Please go ahead and enjoy. There's lots of delightful delectables. Happy Sabbath. See you next week.